SAP Spend Management Executive Exchange.
Hello and welcome to the SAP Executive Exchange, navigating through the Polycrisis world in association with CNBC-TV18.com, and I'm your host, Ruchira Sharma. In the current business environment, business leaders need to step up and go beyond their traditional roles because they're being faced by multiple challenges, geopolitical, economic, and all of these are collectively called the Polycrisis. So for leaders to overcome such challenges, spend management is a very important component. Spend management essentially means optimizing working capital and automating spending processes across all businesses and functions. And that is going to be the focus of this exclusive roundtable discussion with industry leaders. We will understand how to automate spending processes and also the role of generative AI and digital tools in leveraging spend management processes. So let's introduce our esteemed panel of guests. We have with us Mr. Vineet Sharma, Director of Finance, MDIS. We also have Mr. Madan Sampath, Chief Supply Chain Officer, Healthcare Global Hospital. We have Mr. Ajita Banerjee, Head of Strategic Finance and Investor Relations at Razorpay. We are also joined by Mr. Praneeth Agarwal, General Manager, Finance Controller, Maya Estates. Mr. Sivaya Kota, AVP Supply Chain Management and Operations at Natural Remedies Private Limited. We are also joined by Mr. Pavan Rao, Head of Finance, Tata Advanced Systems Limited, and Mr. Prakhar Kesaria, Deputy General Manager Finance at Narayana Healthcare. And we have with us Mr. Venkat Subramaniam Srinivasan, Director of Value Advisory, SAP. All right, so gentlemen, in this thought leadership roundtable discussion, our focus is, of course, to understand how effective spend management can optimize working capital, how it can strengthen supply chain visibility, how it can also reduce risks and preempt risks. And another highlight where we want you to share all your learnings is the transformative impact of AI and digital tools in enhancing spend management practices and also unlocking hidden efficiencies. So let me begin by asking you, Mr. Vineet, expense management, of course, as principally speaking, it is of paramount importance. In fact, Mr. Venkat also shared how approaching spend management principally has changed. You need to develop a new approach towards it. So tell us from your own organizational learning, how critical is it to prioritize spend management as a part of an overall strategic business agenda?
Yeah, no, thank you, Rujika, for the question. So I think, firstly, we use all the networks, which SAP is providing us, except the Tulia, which is the new one.
All right.
Apart from this, I think the company strongly follows on zero-based budgeting, where every dollar spent is being minutely scrutinized that why it need to be spent, right? Until the time we don't have a strong storyline that this spend need to be done or not, we don't spend.
All
so
right.
that's priority number one. And priority number two, we first prioritize payment to the vendor based upon the importance which we pay in the organization, right?
Sure.
So keeping these two things in mind, we try to control the spend.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Prakhar, I'd like to come to you. At Narayana Healthcare, what is your learning? How important is expense management to you and how are you approaching it?
Yeah, thanks, Ruchira. So basically, NH operates in a cost-sensitive environment because we are focused to provide affordable healthcare to the society with a basically high quality. So cost becomes an important agenda for us. And
Okay.
what we do is we do plan our cost at a more granular level. Our functional stakeholders are instigated or required to give the cost elements and cash flows at a detailed level.
Sure.
Secondly, what we do is whatever are the repetitive processes, we automate those processes so that we are able to derive our operational efficiencies. Like we have developed our own HIS, Hospital Information System, named
All right.
Atma. Also, we have got our analytics application, the Meda boards. We have got
Sure.
interactive chatbots, which enables us to get real-time information of our key assets utilization, like what is happening on my OPD consultants room, what is happening on my operation theaters utilization. So all these key assets utilization we are able to get, and we are able to derive the maximum utilization of those resources. And this way we are able to cater more volumes with same
Alright.
set of resources.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to come to you, Mr. Ajita. How is your organization, how is Razorpay really leveraging spend management, and what are the significant outcomes that you've seen by doing so?
For us, I think what we've been able to do is one of the assessments was that different teams were going to different organizations to get audits done,
right.
because we work with multiple banks, and each one has a different requirement. What we did was, when we started doing the expense analysis and spend analysis, we realized that maybe we can reduce the number of suppliers or the 10 or 15 auditors to maybe a smaller set of auditors who can have much deeper information on the company and can actually leverage their learnings and give us a lot more in-depth analysis, not
Sure.
only making their analysis a lot more robust, but also helping us develop relationships with these auditors to a great extent. I think that's really helped us quite a bit, because that also helps us with economies of scale. It helps us also optimize our spends and not repeat spends where it's unnecessary.
Sure. And which KPIs do you track to gauge the success of your spend management principles?
It's about maybe the total number of suppliers that are there. How much are we spending per supplier? Do we have we seen enough competition in some of the vendors whom we are using? Is there a way to optimize? So from that, if for example one company has 4 or 5 products, are we using all the 4 or 5 and taking advantage of the integration, or are we using different products, which is obviously resulting in a lot more integration work from our side?
All right.
So I think some of these numbers are something that we check and see, is there a way for us to make things better?
Sure. Thank you, Ajitab. I'd like to come to you, Mr. Pavan. At Tata Advanced Systems, how are you really measuring the effectiveness of your spend management efforts, and what are the KPIs that are you tracking them against?
For the effective spend management, the key KPIs basically are the budgets, whether we are managing the budgets properly, and how are we actually auditing the processes. Because usually, as a finance, we usually go for multiple audits, and we just look into what the audit numbers are. But the process audit of how the work happens is we don't do that. So that's where we started that particular activity in Tata Advanced Systems, where we do the process audit on how we are effectively managing the spend. Are we incurring more, or are we incurring excess spend compared to the expected budgets or the expected bids that we participate into? And we look into the cash conversion cycles. And then we look into how we are managing the budgets or how we are managing the cash. So I was speaking earlier that the cash is the king.
Yes.
Because today, if you don't have cash and if you spend everything, you won't be, even though you are showing a profitability and you don't have a cash, then it's a problem. So that's how we are managing the cash. And that's how it is critical for us.
Sure. I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Madan. We're talking about future-proofing your enterprise by minimizing risks and also ensuring better supply chain visibility. So at Healthcare Global Hospital, in these disruptive times, how are you ensuring visibility across the supply chain, right from planning to receipt of goods? What are your key learnings?
Yeah. Thank you, Ruchira, for having me here. See, basically the inflation and persistently tangled supply chain has put a lot of pressure on the healthcare system in India today, right? While there has been more focus on how we manage the spend, at the same time, the risk of having spurious drugs in the market, how do we have the visibility of end-to-end from the pharma manufacturer till it reaches the patient? These are the key elements what we focus on. I'm happy that I have another good panelist from the healthcare industry. Today, especially the top healthcare players in India are focusing on the complete digital transformation. Obviously, tools from SAP and similar players help us navigate through the end-to-end blockchain from the pharmacy manufacturing warehouse till it reaches our pharmacy, till it goes to the patient, right? Especially sitting in oncology chain across 27 locations, it's hard to see what kind of distributors, what kind of partners we have across the country. We focus on the overall digital tool to manage who are all the suppliers out in the market,
All right.
what kind of systems and process they have in their place to ensure the risk are minimized overall when it comes to the availability and the supply chain of the drugs.
Sure. Thank you for sharing those insights. Mr. Sivaya, I'd like to come to you. Could you tell us some of the key strategies or technologies that have enabled you at your organization to enhance supply chain visibility and also, mitigate risks to basically future-proof your enterprise?
Yeah, thank you, Ruchira, for having me here, and I'm grateful to all the panelists. They are contributing to this great debate. At Natural Remedies, what we are a nutraceutical and animal healthcare organization. We are one of the leading organizations in India. For us, the most important thing is customer centrism and the default compliance. And we want to be the most reliable supplier to the global markets. We export goods into around some 60-70 countries. And on demand, whenever the customer want it, from all the global markets, we want to say that the product is readily available for them. That's how our supply chain visibility, right from the procurement to transportation, logistics, and warehousing and manufacturing. We have a complete integrated supply chain management in Natural Remedies. And today, one of the great things that we did in Natural Remedies is that in our domestic market, our compliance to order delivery is almost like 99.9%. Sure. That's the level of impeccable supply chain we built around for last 7 to 8 years. And to the global markets, our ability to supply around from the order date to the dispatch from our factories around 10 to 11 days. To international markets. That's the kind of robust system we made it. We call it is on-demand fulfillment center. That means we aggregate the whole demand coming from the global markets for different products and SKUs. We aggregate it and we'll make it in an SFG form, and then we will able to convert into FG at the very fast level. That's how our supply chain visibility is concerned. Coming to this risk, how do we manage on cost and spend is that one of the important things today. Global freight, which is very volatile due to this, Red Sea crisis, Ukraine war, because there are challenges actually, and sea freights or air freights are almost like 2x compared to the pre-shipping season to the shipping season now, and they will be cooling down somewhere in November-December season. So, cost is balancing this cost at achieving the supply chain metrics is the most important factor for any supply chain manager. And we actually manage all these controls and the budgets from SAP. SAP provides actually a greater visibility on how these controls are enabled. And when from the PO process, it blocks budgets and enables it very well. So we are using the SAP tools so well. So that's where my point is.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'd like to come to you, Mr. Venkat. You were talking about, connecting people, processes, systems, and also approaching spend management in a different manner. So how has SAP really enabled companies to unlock spend potential or unleash efficiency by, changing their spend management software? What are the offerings that you really have?
Right. So while, as I spoke in the first session, from an end-to-end capability on different spend areas, we do have solutions to take care of it. At the same time, when we had the discussion so far, each one had a different starting point, and based on the nature of business and where they are in the growth path, each customer has different scenarios. I'll just take some examples to support that. One of the customers in the pharma industry side, they came and said, you know what, we want to invent a lot of new materials and new products and drugs into the market. So how can I make my R&D procurement more streamlined? So their idea was like, can I bring catalogs and rest of the solutions and make it a B2C environment? This is almost like 6 years back, right? Similarly, there was one on the engineering and construction space where each of the projects this customer was getting into ran as separate companies. And these were across the world, not just in India. They said, you know what, we want to look at certain consolidation opportunities like structural steel and few others. So at the same time, freight and rest of those costs in different markets, you've got variability on it. Can I have a system which helps not just gathering this data, but providing some level of intelligence and insights to be able to take those decisions and points, saying which route I should take, how many service providers I should have for the material transportation, what can be the cost, what part of it I pull out now itself into the inventory piece, things like that, right? And there are multiple examples. One of the conglomerates in India, they said, we have been to multiple businesses, various verticals spread across India and globally. We want a streamlined source to pay operations where I get visibility and I start to look at opportunities for supply consolidation. Right. So how do you get into that? So to make sure, based on the business areas where they are and what to do, we have tried to compartmentalize it. And more than just going with the technology, we first try to understand the customer's needs, see where is that business need, and then go into the areas. From a coverage perspective, today if you see, be it indirects, be it directs, travel and expenses, contract workforce, completely end-to-end spend management we are able to do. And overall, from whatever researches we see, we got a major market share across the globe, including India.
Sure. Thank you for taking us through that. I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Prakhar. If we talk about optimizing working capital, to drive business growth and build resilience, if you could share the strategies that you've adopted in your organization to do the same, if you could take us through those.
Yeah, so when we talk about working capital, the first thought come in mind is the cash is king, which Pawan sir has rightly covered. So it is the job of the finance, the CFO or the finance team to translate EBITDA into the cash flows. And one of the measure is unlocking the working capital. So there are various ways, the strategies which we can follow for unlocking the working capital is, one of them is planning effectively the cash flows. You have to have an idea of what cash flows are going to come so that you are not running out of cash when the actual requirement comes up. And also at the same point of time, you cannot have lot of funds lying with you expecting for the cash flows to come because you are going to bear interest for that. Another area where you have to focus is to have the effective and robust receivables mechanism. And at NH, we have got very effective, robust receivables management, for which we have got a specific tool named Claimbook, through which we handle all our sponsor claims. And it has got a very effective dashboards which gives us real-time update on our claim submission tag, the query response, the accuracy of claims, and the recovery period from the sponsors. And it enables us to minimize our recovery period significantly. And also we are able to prove ourselves from bad debts which we were facing earlier. So that is about digitalization of claims process. Another area where we have got a robust process is inventory control. So we have got the stakeholders, we have got a consumption center of excellence team, which is empowered by the professionals from various streams. Some are from pharma industry, some are from the management graduates, some are cost and management accountants. So they all do predictive analysis of what should be my consumption. If I am doing a particular kind of case mix, and we are able to identify the deviations to correct in future. So that is one of the area we are able to unlock the working capital and the cost. Another area is we have got the diverse supplier base through which we are able to get the better terms, the favorable negotiations we are able to do. Also, we have centralized all our procurements and we have standardized the brands which are being used in our hospitals. So basically through that, we are able to enjoy economies of scale when we are negotiating at large scale with the manufacturers.
Sure. Thank you. Very pertinent points there. Coming to you, Mr. Madan, how are you optimizing working capital, across your supply chain to drive resilience? What are your strategies? Because you're from the same space. So what are the key learnings at your end?
Yeah, no, it was very well articulated, Vipraka. So almost majority of the points, I resonate with what he said. But few other things, when we think about capital infusion, right, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, is it going to enhance the patient care, right? Is it going to improve the clinical outcome, what we have today compared to what the new investment is up to?
Sure.
And more importantly, we look at the current utilization of the equipment or the capex that's in place, right? Whether it's optimized or utilized completely to its potential or not. That is on the capital part of it. When it comes to working capital, obviously on the pharma side, we try to centralize the overall pharma spend. So we have more than 95% of the pharma spend today centralized for all the 27 hospitals, right? We have great contracts with the manufacturers directly to further take advantage of the volume what we have in the group. So these are the basic measures what we have to also to ensure inventory management. We have central dashboards, real-time monitoring of the inventory that's in place, whether because especially hospitals and healthcare, it's more seasonal, right? It's not going to be same every single month, and depending on what's new in the market today, that's how the diseases are in the current scenario. So whatever comes in, we have to be like pretty agile and keep our suppliers and distributors flexible, so that there is a good relationship, working relationship with our
And
partners
improvise
as
in
well.
real time, as you
And
said.
improvise in real time. Yeah.
All right. I'd like to bring you in. As Mr. Pawan had mentioned earlier, CFOs need that precarious balance between, balancing enough sufficient liquidity and also having funds for ongoing operations, growth initiatives. So essentially optimizing working capital. And some businesses have longer cash conversion cycles than the others. So how are you really doing that? Any innovative financing solutions that you have leveraged?
Yeah. So as Pawan sir said that cash is king, I say budget is king, right? And of course, SAP thanks SAP. Why? Because we are the makers, but SAP is the checker, right? So every time when you cross a budget, a signal comes, hey boss, go on,
You've gone over.
increase your budget, right? And thanks to your FICO model, the COPA model which you have implemented, right? They actually help us a lot. Now the innovative solutions, what we are trying to do is, firstly, we try to reduce our DSO, which is daily sales outstanding, right?
Sure.
So, on an average in IT industry, it was going somewhere around 60%, 60 days. Now it has come down to 45 days, right? So that's a big victory for us. That's number one. Number two, all the payment what we make, right? We try to negotiate with the vendors that on an average, we should get at least 60 days credit period. And we also promise the volume of business. And the best part is that we try to when we pitch to customers, we try to showcase boutique of services which we can provide, right?
Sure.
So that we can get an early payment and a delay payment to the vendors, right? So that's how we are optimizing that. And as Ajitab sir is over here, one of the one of the startup investors are supporting us, right? So at the time when we are under fund crunch, right? Investor do help us out to generate cash, to provide some liquidity so that we can run our show. So that's our take.
All right. What would you like to say to this, Ajitab? How are you approaching this? What are the innovative solutions that you are leveraging?
So honestly, our business is slightly different, and we don't have that kind of working capital that a lot of other companies have. But I think typically it's about I think as he put it, ensuring that you have a well thought through annual operating plan, and the ability to stick to that I think is very important. But in order to stick to that, you need to be able to track the spends. You need to be able to figure out what spend is coming up when and how. And I think that's where a lot of these spend management and expense management tools come in very handy. We use some, we do a lot of work manually, but it's really the focus on this that helps us manage our working capital as well, because of the visibility that we have now started getting in terms of any spends that are coming up. Because we have moved to a place where you have so many IT tools, every tool has a different requirement. Something is to be paid monthly, something is to be paid annually, something is recurring, something is on the basis of headcount, something is on the basis of number of licenses.
Sure.
So it's important to have that visibility and predict what's coming up when. And therefore, having a good budget in place and having a good way to track all of these spends, I think really helps in managing working capital. I think the financing is really a later part. If you are just able to do this correctly and get visibility around the expenses coming up, I think that goes a long way in managing working capital.
Definitely, well said. I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Pawan. In your experience, what are the key spend management processes, where digital tools and technologies can actually play a pivotal role? And do you see the need for such tools to be integrated within your ERP systems?
Yes, definitely. So the spends like travel, mainly the G&A spends that we have in terms of all the administrative costs, in terms of the marketing expense, the travels, and all your key expenditures.
Sure.
So this is where the tools are very much required to know that are you spending, what cost centers are you booking the cost, who is spending, who is spending more than the budgeted. And definitely we do a lot of budgeting, as Vineet was saying, that budget is king, but definitely we make a lot of budgets. But the businesses sometimes ask for, there are a lot of changes that comes. And
Sure.
people now ask for an analysis as to who is traveling more, whether it is required or whether it is not required. And the tools, like there are many tools which are now where you do the online booking of the expenditures and then integrate into like Happy and many other such travel forms are there.
Sure.
But I think somewhere the SAP S4 HANA, the Fiori is one of the app which is very beautifully designed.
Sure.
And which gives a lot of insights into how is the trend going on in terms of the spend, in terms of your revenues, in terms of your expenses. So that gives a very good, you need not go and prepare a PowerPoint presentation. It itself, the Fiori itself gives you a very proper analysis as to what
Single
the spend
window
is
view.
there, a single window view to the management. So these kind of tools are very much important. And since SAP is widely used, so all these tools are definitely required for integration.
Mr. Praneeth, how are you approaching expense management? How has your approach changed in the last few years? And how critical do you think it is to prioritize it as a part of the overall business agenda?
See, expense management in my organization, earlier, if I talk about 2 years from today, it was more or less maintenance of the physical files and all the bills coming from the vendors in the physical formats, or even if it was coming in a digital form, the practice was to take the printouts and maintain the box files
Manually.
100% manual. Since the last 2 years, I would say we have completely digitized the entire expense management as well as payment processing. Payment processing was on the large note was digitized, but the maintenance of the data and the records keeping has truly converted into digital format, where no more bills are being printed or kept manually.
Alright.
It is in the digital form, 100%. Yeah.
Sure. And how are you tracking the success of your spend management tools? What KPIs are you using?
KPIs as in, I would say, maintaining the records in such a manner where analyzing it in the form of the MIS, which we do on a monthly basis.
Sure.
If we are able to maintain that in such a form that converting into the form of MIS becomes a quick one-click thing, that we have achieved. So that's one KPI. Another thing is where the tracking of expenses in the form of in what all different cost heads we have achieved, whether we have gone ahead of our budgets, etc. That analysis has become a one-click thing now. So these 2-3 KPIs
Are important.
we are important, which we have been able to achieve.
Sure. One quick question. We were also talking about working capital, you know, how CFOs need to ensure sufficient working capital to drive business growth, despite sometimes not having enough cash at hand. So how are you really doing that? How are you optimizing working capital? What strategies are you using?
See, working capital mainly depends on, the best working capital management gives you a system where your available funds are so well organized that your spends are not being hampered because of the non-availability of the funds, first thing. And second thing, if you have additional funds that are not sitting idle.
Sure.
So both needs to be handled by way of optimizing the fund flow management. And that also again depends on your best management of the spends.
Sure. Mr. Ajitab, coming to you, which digital tools do you think in your mind have been helping enterprises like yours derive more value or have more savings?
So we recently onboarded a tool called Zluri, where we could onboard all the SaaS tools that we use in our organization. And at one point in time, I think we had more than 2,000.
Okay.
But of course, I think that gave us that visibility, right? I mean, we never counted it until we put it. So I think once you measure it, I think it really helps understand the size of the problem you have. But that's one of the tools that really helped us.
All right. Coming to you, Prakhar, if you could tell us, which digital tools and technologies have you been leveraging, and if you see the need to integrate it with your ERP systems.
Yeah. So as we come from a service industry, our significant proportion of our cost is manpower cost, for which we have got SAP SuccessFactors. Last year, we have implemented that, and we are leveraging the benefits of the same.
Okay.
Apart from that, the entire procurement process needs digitalization. We have got e-procurement tool, which is indigenously developed. We have developed our own P2P application. And that is helping us the complete digitalization of entire procurement process, right from the time the requisition is coming till the time the receipt happens, and after receipt, further the payment processing, that interface. These are entire process is touch free.
Sure.
So apart from that, the contracts management application, these applications help us to draft, store, and monitor our contracts. It also helps us to see the adherence and compliance to the contracted terms. The expense management applications, such as for travel grid or something like that, which helps us to track the employee reimbursement claims and everything. It completely automates the approval flows as well. Apart from that, we are also exploring to have the EPM as a part of our planning tool, through which we can do the budgetary control at PO level itself. Obviously, I feel that integration of these applications with ERP system is mandatory, because unless we have that, we may face issue in terms of scalability, flexibility. Also, the centralization of process will be a concern.
Coming to you, Mr. Sivaya, if you could take us through the technologies or the methodologies that you've been adapting, which are effective in ensuring your supply chain visibility, enhancing it, and also mitigating risks. If you could share your organizational learnings.
Yes, Ruchira. One of the metrics that we follow for supply chain is default compliance, as I said in the beginning, and at the same time, we also see the inventory turns ratio. That means how quick your inventory is liquidated once you produce the goods.
Sure.
Second is that your inventory freshness index. That means your produced inventories are not lasting in the warehouse for a too longer period of time. And then how do we control this is a slog mechanism, that is slow and absolute inventory. And this is a chain of activities. And from where your working capital is consumed more is the inventories. Inventory is nothing but you are putting money directly. Whether it be like raw material, packing material, or FG goods. Once you buy something, you produce something, unless you sell, again the money comes back to your system. Again, it's your money is holding there. That's a cost of inventory carrying cost. It's like a significant for a reasonably cash depleted organizations. So keeping all these things at Natural Remedies, what we do is strong demand sensing tools. That means we see globally what demand is coming and how often they are coming, how repetitive they are, what quantum it is going to come. And these SAP has beautifully enabled us to sense this demand. And another important thing what we see is that SAP also enables this MRP driven what is called production planning. Once the production plan is uploaded in SAP, you can have this MRP driven, and MRP percolates down to be created in such a way that PRs are generated, or purchase team is to allocate to which vendor how much quantity they want to allocate it, and POs are converted. And there is a standard processes for which vendor has to be how much quantity kind of thing. It's like integrated supply chain, we can say about it. So that's where our capability comes as a supply chain managers to see that inventories are as low as possible. At the same time, you are able to fulfill the demand coming into your system. And cash flows again. How efficient your receivable team or a credit control team, which like again here, AI driven approach. Now today we are applying AI tools, particularly for the many customers. what kind of pay they have, what kind of credit worthiness they have in their system. Now there are tools available. There are organizations which support us to know whether this customer can be given credit or not, even through international customers as well. So through chain of activities, through full of integrity and tools, like you said, one of the important aspect in our international trade is the freight. Freight, we have our inbuilt app which reaches to around some 150 freight forwarders. They can reach to across the globe all the shipping agents, shipping lines, and come back to us what could be the right cost. That's where actually we control the cost in these VUCA times. So it's a supply chain managers. We have challenges, but at the same time, if you really well planned and step ahead of the time, and I'm sure you can really control the cost.
Definitely. I'd like to come to you, Vineet. But just quickly, one quick question to you, Mr. Madan. How are you doing the same? How are you ensuring, because in your industry, ensuring continuity in supply chain is even more crucial. So how are you doing that? And how are you making sure that you also save costs and mitigate risks while you're at it?
So I would say there are three elements in any P&L, right? Man, machine, and material.
Sure.
So obviously, human cost is the major factor in healthcare or in majority of the industries, I would say. So when it comes to material, it's more about integration of system, right? With our external partners, let it be in terms of GR and automation, whether the goods coming in to ensure that the lead time of converting the invoice into the system, because we can't have the material idle sitting at the warehouse without being utilized, and ensuring it reaches the patient at the right time. So overall, what is key for us is looking at the inventory management, looking at the expired goods, the non-moving, right? So we look at we make certain analysis like FSN, fast, slow, and non-moving drugs, which are key for the business. Mostly 80% of what we buy are the fast-moving drugs. Within that, which are vital, which are like essential ones. So we segregate those items to ensure that at any given point of time, we have all the vital drugs available in the system, right? Sure. Whether we use it or not, whether we use it once in 3 months, once in 6 months, we need to have that inventory. At the same time, all the essential drugs are in place at any given point of time, based on the usage or not. So we keep a close contact with our manufacturers as well, try to integrate the system, like other than the HIS what we have, we also have SAP as our ERP system. So we try how do we integrate both the systems with our distributors, our manufacturers, to have visibility of their stock in their warehouse. So at any given point of time, we know what kind of stocks they have a hold on, so that if we have a certain requirement, we know who to rely on, because there are, India being the hub of pharma manufacturing, there are several manufacturers out there for each and every drug, right?
Definitely.
So while we have our preferred formulary, preferred brand for every molecule that we buy, we want to make sure the critical drugs or the high consumption ones are always in stock, or have complete visibility of what the manufacturers are also keeping in stock for us.
All right. Coming to you, Mr. Vineet, we spoke about automating spend management processes, and we also spoke about why it is important, in the overall business agenda. So according to you, what are the primary challenges that enterprises typically face while aligning spend management goals to the broader business goals, and how have you at Emids overcome such challenges?
So see, basically, I'll just narrate you that IT and IT industries is a bit different from healthcare, from manufacturing. Why? Because over here, my biggest spend is people management. I mean, people cost, right? So approximate 55 to 60% of my total cost is salary cost. So over there, if what we have to manage is my bench cost. So the people who are not billable, they are my cost, right? So we have an in-house intelligent tool, ARC, which actually tells us beforehand that what type of resource, what type of skills are going to come on bench, and what we can do, or maybe what are the upcoming contracts where we can deploy them.
Right.
So that's a first header which we get. Secondly thing is that on a monthly basis, or rather I'll say on a weekly basis, we try to evaluate our bench, and if sometimes we have to take hard calls as well, to ensure that unnecessary cost is not hitting our P&L. That's step number 2. As Abhijit sir said that we also evaluate all the tools, all the licenses which we have bought, and we also had approximate 250 plus licenses which we had, which was not used. Maybe a Salesforce license, maybe some SAP license, which we are not using. So cutting out those costs actually helped us, right? So these are the 4 things which we are using.
Sure. Ajita, what would you like to add to this? Primary challenges that you've been facing, while aligning spend management techniques to larger business goals?
I think about the main challenge is trying to measure. I think if we can get all the data in place and get it measured, after that, I think it's more of taking decisions. But the biggest challenge is getting all of this data together and measuring it in one place. I think that's the biggest challenge. And again, that's where tools help. It requires a lot of initial work, but if we can get that done, then that's one way to overcome this challenge.
Definitely. Mr. Pavan, your thoughts?
Yeah. See, ours is a defense industry. So it all depends upon the customer because the government. So the spend and everything is very dynamic in nature and the gestation periods are very, very high. And the predictability levels are also, it's volatile. So even though we make many provisions with respect to some predictions, it's very difficult to estimate what kind of changes the market asks for and what new challenges or new markets that will open. Because there are many spends in this particular industry where you have to spend first to get into the market.
Definitely.
Example, I say when you go for an export market, if you want to sell any vehicle for any export defense customer, first you have to issue a vehicle for them for trials and you have to spend the money, including the capex investments, and then you have to go. So that's where these particular tools are very important in terms of understanding what kind of predictions we do have. So that's how we are doing it.
Sure. Now moving on to what is a buzzword these days and a necessity, the role of Gen AI in unlocking spend potential and unleashing efficiency. So I'd like to start with you, Mr. Prakhar. AI is, of course, redefining every space and spend management is also part of that. So how do you see Gen AI playing a role in unlocking spend potential and enhancing efficiency within, your organizational operations?
So if we see Gen AI in terms of our the routine operations, it is going to help in many use cases we have. So one of the use cases which we are already using is the predictive analysis for our reorder levels, identifying the non-moving and slow-moving inventories. So these are a couple of use cases, and also we are basically analyzing the predictive analysis for all our operational cost. So it gives us an idea of how much deployment of our manpower is required if I'm going to get these volumes. So this kind of analytics we are able to do, and we are able to deploy more of our resources. And with this predictive analysis of slow moving and non-moving, for last 2.5 years, we can say that we have got zero write-offs in terms of our inventory.
That's great. All right. Quickly, Mr. Sivaya, what is your thought here? How do you think AI is redefining the entire, spend management landscape? And how are you ensuring greater visibility across supply chain operations?
Yeah, definitely. And Gen AI is going to be the fulcrum of operations for supply chain because it definitely greatly helps the demand sensing ability of the supply chain planners. And that is one, and it also identifies these inventories that are lying for more than a certain period of time, because Gen AI can really identify that one point on the FG inventories. When it comes to sourcing, Gen AI can be again helpful because when you are in need of certain material, it can actually throw some information that where it is available readily, probably those components available or those raw materials available. So you can reach out to those kind of vendors instead of searching for many vendors. That makes Gen AI is going to be more relevant function for supply chain in the days to come. Probably, I think it's not too far. Maybe down the line, 2 to 3 years, we can see supply chain transformation is going to be one of the transformations happening in every organization. At Natural Remedies, we have already started this digital transformation.
Sure.
So many tools we are embarking now. So I'm sure we'll be placing our organization like any of the multinational companies today doing it. You can see Gen AI leading the organizations coming forward.
All right. Would you like to add something, Mr. Praneeth?
Yeah, sure. See, Gen AI in my real estate sector is actually playing a interesting role, where starting from the designing of the building, and of course in the real estate, if you see, the P&L needs to be set for the 5 years instead of an annual thing.
Yes.
And to estimate the cost and the sales for the 5 years project is always depend on so much of the assumptions and predictabilities. And there Gen AI actually helps us to design the building starting from there to even estimating the cost of the things, the looking at the trends and estimating the prices after 2 years time. For example, if I talk about a steel such as a raw material, Gen AI is actually being able to give us the estimation based on the trends as to what prices I can expect in 2 years down the line or 5 years down the line, and that gives us a good data to give us a better budgeting tools.
Definitely.
That helps us definitely.
All right, gentlemen. So we have time for just 2 quick questions. So this one is for all of you. I'll start with you, Mr. Vineet. What are some of the spend management processes where you feel, or from your recent experience, where you have seen that AI and ML can actually improve efficiency or effectiveness?
See, again, I'll shift my needle to SAP. Why? Because I was fortunate enough to use most of the modules of SAP. So whether it was Material Management module, whether it's, as I said, FICO module, whether it's Coupa module, right? And again, the Ariba, we are using the contract management tool. I think the trend help us a lot to ask a question to ourselves that why are we doing this particular spend, right? And I think based on this tool, to take the name of PLM, Product Lifecycle Management, right, which is mainly used in defense sector, and we were, while working in Wipro, we were one of the most significant implementation partner. So these tools actually help us that and I think they help us to accurately design the budget. If you miss the budget, whether it's over or under, you can ask a question to yourself: what went right and what went wrong, and you will have an answer on yourself, right? So these are things which we are using.
All right. Any live example that you'd like to share? Any recent example, Mr. Pavan and Mr. Ajita?
Yeah, the tools basically like S4 HANA, SAP S4 HANA gives a lot of very good modules, the fund management modules. I think what Prakhar was mentioning earlier, they use some other software to manage the funds.
Sure.
So SAP itself has this particular modules like fund management, the project management modules. So these tools are very much, very good SAP integrated modules are there. And definitely these all modules will help in the spend management very effectively.
All right. Mr. Ajita?
I think any tool that helps gather the data, clean the data, and help us categorize it should really be helpful. And I think that's where a lot of this AI and ML should help, because one thing I think it does really well is put everything in context, and I think that's what we need.
Definitely. Mr. Prakhar, any closing comments for this?
Yeah, so in my view, an effective spend management using digital tools would be the scenario where each rupee spent is aligned to the financial goals of the organization. It drives the value and it avoids any unnecessary spends which may add to the cost of my service.
Definitely. All right. So one last question. I'd like to request all of you to sum it up in one quick sentence. We'll start with you, Mr. Venkat. According to you, what is the key takeaway for all, enterprises across sectors, a strategy that they should adopt to make spend management an important priority going forward?
See, a connected system, as we spoke, with a change management, because people speak about connected systems, but then they forget the aspect around re-engineering and change management. I would say looking at it holistically rather than taking short-term views would be the important aspect.
So thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your valuable insights on how your financial and supply chain has been enhanced by new age spend management principles. And clearly, just to sum up what you all said, in the current volatile landscape, automating spending processes is no longer a choice; it is a necessity. And optimizing working capital is very important to ensure better control, greater savings, and most importantly, long-term sustainable growth. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for watching.
SAP Spend Management Executive Exchange.